change and innovation is great. We work in medicine. Where would we be without change and innovation? One part of our brain will embrace change as a good thing, but the other part, the people part, most of us tend to fight it. And we're in a field that is constantly changing.
Not many 5-year-olds say they want to be in HR or hospital management. But when Paul Miranda saw the joy from helping people thrive in their careers and do great things as teams, he saw a path for him. His husband is a veterinarian, and Paul has been in hospital administration and practice management since 2003, working in individual practice as well as corporate practices. He is currently an operations support manager at NVA Compassion First. Veterinary teams need people in different roles, so I was excited to get Paul's perspective on career pathing, burnout, and what makes thriving veterinary teams. He also had a unique perspective that I didn't know before. So here is Paul. To get kind of into your own career journey, before you got into the veterinary world, you had several years working in recruiting and human resources. So, what attracted you to those areas?
Um, I was attracted to the people side of the business, the HR, and honestly, some of it I think was by luck. I did my undergrad and grad school at Penn, and just kind of fell into that career, not really knowing a whole lot about it, and really enjoyed it. And from there, my husband and I were purchasing an animal hospital, putting every penny we had on the line, and that's how I came into the vet world.
So, was he in the veterinary space? Is that how you got into the veterinary side of things?
Yeah, he's also a veterinarian. We met at Penn originally, met several times throughout our life, and he was practicing at the time. So that's how I fell into it. We worked together for some years. I don't recommend working with your spouse. Long term, it's probably not the best of ideas, but I fell in love with what we do and the challenges, the responsibility that we have, and really enjoyed what I was doing.
No, I like to think we're special people in the veterinary world. And I think also just being surrounded by animals too is that's a special part of it. So, what were some of your biggest learnings outside of the veterinary space, comparing it into what you now see so much of in the veterinary side?
Biggest learnings I would say is, and this can be applied to any space. There's what we do. There's the technology. You've got to be good with people in general, and unless you're working completely by yourself, there's got to be a connection. You've got to be able to work with others, make sure that you listen to people and really listen before making a decision, especially when someone knows more about the field than you do, allowing them time to talk about their concerns. And those are concepts that you can take with you anywhere.
Absolutely. Because very rarely are you working by yourself. We talk about that a lot coming into the veterinary side too, is most of us came in because we liked pets, but we're in a people business. And so you're whether it's your coworkers that you're working with or pet owners, we're always working with people.
Very much so. And if you can't get along with people, you may be a great doctor, want to help your patients, but if you can't communicate, you're not going to be able to help anyone. So we are in a people business, which is strange because it's medical, but so much of it is about relationships. It's about trust and having that pet parent build trust very quickly.
Yeah. And especially for your roles that you've had in hospital settings where, I mean, that is what you do is you're always talking, communicating with people. Can you describe, if you had to describe what a hospital manager does, how would you describe that?
Would depend on the size of the hospital complexity. If you're in a smaller hospital, it's going to be a very different role from a 400 employee hospital. So there's that part. There's the business part. So making sure that we're making sound quality decisions that are the right thing for our people, for our hospital, for our patients, making sure that we are treating our employees well, and that we are always doing the best job for our employees. It's a really competitive labor force out there. So are our salaries competitive? Are we making sure that we've got the best benefits? And then there's the compliance part of the job as well. So it's knowing a little bit about a lot of different things, but I would say the majority of it is taking care of your people.
Yeah. So a couple of things in that I'd love to talk about is one, you said it's a competitive world right now in our field. So talent retention is a big thing and the possibility to grow in your career. So I've seen a lot of veterinary technicians who might be interested in going into more of hospital management position as well. Have you seen that happen a lot where veterinary technicians get into that role? And what have you seen? What are your thoughts about that as a career path?
Yeah, I have seen some veterinary technicians be very successful in and being able to transition from working on the floor to being more of that business-minded individual. And I've seen some that have moved into that role because perhaps they thought that that was the only way, the next step. And it doesn't have to be. Whether if you think about a training role, if you love the medical side, I say stick with that piece. Don't do something that doesn't feel right, and then look for other opportunities where you still get to practice what you love. If you love being a technician, but perhaps you're thinking of, hey, maybe I need to do something else. I can't be on the floor all the time. It's hard on my bones. What's career pathing look like? And that's where we can do a much better job to have those conversations earlier on to say, let's talk about these different opportunities, or tell me where you want to go. And let's try and build something that makes sense. So there are many things you can do as a technician. The leadership side is just one avenue.
You lead a lot of hospitals. What are some of your success tips for talent retention?
Yeah, by no means have I figured it out. I would say transparency is important. Honesty, making sure that the people that are on the ground, our hospital directors, medical directors, making sure that we're setting the right culture for our hospitals, making sure that it's a safe environment. And I don't mean physically safe. I mean emotionally safe, mentally safe, which is different from a physical safety. It's we're setting that culture where if I disagree with you, I can feel safe to say, hey, I disagree with this, and these are the reasons why. Let's talk about it. Those are the type of things that we need to do a better job. That's how we retain our people, making sure that we're paying competitive wages, that we are continually evaluating what those wage bands look like, career pathing, having those conversations with folks to say, what do you want to do? Tell me. The last thing I want to do is have a conversation with you after you're turning in your resignation, because at that point it's too late. But if I can approach it 6 months before to say, tell me what you want to do. Are you happy? Tell me what you want to do next. And maybe it's you love doing exactly what it is you're doing. It's my job to ask those questions.
How have you seen it work well to maybe the culture's not fantastic? What have you seen work in making a better culture? Especially, I liked what you were talking about with the psychological safety. Like I feel safe to express when I may not agree with something, but also maybe even talking about, I'm starting to feel burnt out, those kinds of things. How do you help set up that very good culture?
Really good question. One thing I do, and I've done this with I have a couple of new hospital directors. So early on, I'd like to have a honest conversation around what they need as an environment, what I need, and that includes being honest with one another. I don't like sugarcoating comments. Just tell me straight out when I've done something and I need to fix it. Recently I had a medical director come to me to say, "Hey, that comment you made didn't land very well, and these are the reasons why." And I totally owned it, and I said, "You're right. I've got to go back and apologize to these individuals because that's not at all what I meant." So I'm not too proud to admit when I make mistakes. That's part of that safety. And I've got a great relationship with this medical director. I appreciate that she just tells me exactly how things are. And I told her I need that from you to be completely honest. Just tell me straight out. Don't expect me to figure out. So it's a good relationship. That's the kind of environment I want. We're privileged to work in this field, which is very stressful at times, but we need to be able to tell each other exactly what we're thinking, how we feel, whether it's been a tough day, and that also includes not saying, "Oh, it's going to be okay." Just maybe sometimes it's okay to say, I hear you. Yeah, it's been a really crappy day, or that case was tough. That is perfectly fine. I don't want to try and always make things better because sometimes we just have to acknowledge that it's been a really crappy day, and let's talk through that. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of environment that I want. I want folks around me that recognize this is a wonderful field, that want to be here, that it's not just a job, because it's a huge responsibility. No matter what it is we're doing, we all have different roles, but we're all contributing to that pet's well-being. The support that I give my hospitals is different from someone directly on the floor, and they're the ones that are the heroes. I get to chat with different folks, and yeah, but they're the ones that are doing the hard work.
It's a team effort. I think we need each other
We,
and we just have different roles, but in the end we need each other. And I think that's how we need to approach life is just realizing that we need people in our lives. That's a hard one for me. I'm talking to myself when I say that too. Just had a conversation with my own boss about this, and I would much rather you very quickly when something happens, tell me if I did something wrong. Be very clear. Just you can do it with kindness, clear and kind, right? That's just
yes.
what we need. Yeah.
Yeah, I use a lot of marriage counseling at work. So let's just, because it is a relationship, and we spend
Mhm.
so much time with our coworkers, sometimes more than what we do at home. So I find that the counseling works. We're able to communicate, and as you said, if there's something that I do, that I've done, that annoys you, tell me about it, because most of us don't want to go around being annoying, and it's probably a miscommunication, or just tell me. I don't want to try and figure it out, or try and figure out if you're upset with me because you're acting differently. Let's just get it out of the way and say, "Hey, you were a total schmuck," and cut that out. And I'll say, "Got it. Okay, thank you for letting me know. I didn't know that bothered you. I appreciate it. Thank you."
Yes, and, you may not have to do the schmuck part, but unless you really know each other.
Exactly.
But, I think also, tying this back in, when we already have a stressful job, the last thing we need on top of it are those, like, I wonder if don't like me, or, like those kinds of things. If we're just clear and kind at the front, then when we are having that even extra stressful day, when our threshold is really off, right? What I might be able to tolerate today, I just can't handle, the day when I'm super stressed. I think that just helps the whole environment is again just with that we're agreeing to be clear and kind to each other so that, I think that does help when things get more stressful and you do have that crappy day, so that it's okay, like you said, to say, this is just a bad day. And you're going to have that. There's no, we can't have 100% no stressful day. I mean, we're in medicine. We're and we're working with people. Even if you're not in medicine, just sometimes working with people, you're going to have some challenges. So,
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's a stressful job. It will always be stressful. You're going to have those days where you've got that fairly young puppy and you've got to deliver really tough news, and those days suck. They impact you. And if they don't impact you, it's maybe time to perhaps take a vacation, or really think about what's going on. But all these things, you absorb them, and they're going to impact you. And sometimes a crappy day is just a really crappy day, and you've got to acknowledge it, and hopefully tomorrow will be better. And you've got some coping mechanisms at home that can help you maneuver through situations like that.
yeah. And since we're on this topic of kind of burnout, basically is where I think this is kind of going. It's definitely not unique in veterinary medicine. I've heard that term burnout in every corner, everywhere right now, especially with the, the pandemic. But it is something that is talked about as being a pretty big problem in the veterinary profession. And so when I was preparing for this, I was curious, have you yourself experienced burnout?
Yeah, really very, very good question. And I approach this topic a little different. I think we bring so much of our childhood into our lives. So to give you a little background, both my parents are Cuban immigrants, off the boat, worked very hard. They came to this country with absolutely nothing. So the conversation around burnout for them didn't exist. You just had to work really hard to get ahead. And that was ingrained in me, that you don't give up. Life is hard. In order for you to succeed, you've got to work really hard, period. So I recognize that about myself. I hate the topic of burnout because for so many years we've talked about it, but what really has been lacking is that us recognizing that this career, this veterinary medicine, will always be stressful. You're dealing with life. You're dealing with people's children. It's going to be stressful, and we've not talked about how to how to survive this, how to manage it, what resiliency looks like, and it's going to look different for everyone else. I know what I need. I love running, and there comes a time if I go days without running, my husband will tell me, "You need to go outside and go for a run. Go now." So I've got someone in my life that's very good about telling me when I'm off, when I need to go run. I garden. I grow vegetables. I grow trees from roots, and I've started doing that, and it's also taught me patience. When you've got a little tree that's about that big, and that it's a year later, so it's taught me a lot of patience, but I've also learned that there are certain things that I need in order to cope with stress. And if I don't do those things, something is off in me. And I've surrounded myself at home with someone that will tell me, you need to go out right now, go for a run. So I would say where we can shift that conversation is whether it's a coworker, it's a spouse, to be the one that tells us, hey, something's off. You need to go do X because this is how you deal with your stress, and that is what helps you. So that's the part where I really would love for us to shift that conversation from victim burnout to, hey, this is how we can cope, and maybe these are some tools that you can use to help you. They may not, at the end, they may not be the tools you use, but it might start you thinking about what tools you actually need in your toolbox.
Yeah, and I think you're right on that. Your tools that help you be resilient or go through hard things are going to be very individual. So, you've looked at lots of different hospitals. have you seen certain hospitals that stand out to you that are more resilient? And if so, can you describe them and what they are doing to help them as a unit be resilient and maybe even the individuals within it be resilient?
I don't think any one of our hospitals is perfect. They all have different challenges, that they're at different phases. What I've seen that works really well is having a team that's open to feedback, and that's a leadership team, that's a doctor team, that's a technician team, folks that work together as a unit versus I'm here for a paycheck. I clock in at 8 a.m. and I'm going home at 6 p.m. So a team that's willing to really jump in, help each other, that's a team, that's a hospital where I want to work. Folks that want to be there, that come in with a positive attitude, where we're not critical of our clients, because we've all seen those hospitals where the client comes through, and we've got folks that start bad mouthing a client, and it's very easy to say something about a client, especially if they don't know how to treat a certain condition, or they don't know, and we've got a lot more education than they do, so it's easy to pass judgment. But I want to be in a hospital where clients come in, where we help them, we help their pets, and we're happy to be there, and we choose to be there.
Yeah. And I like that even with our attitude towards our clients, because I think, especially when we even allow that type of cynicism, it's very, very dangerous. It's a little bit like a virus and it just spreads onto everything else. And I once heard someone explain it like if one of the clients was a lawyer and they didn't do something that we would have thought would have been common sense, right? Well, that lawyer is very bright. They went to a lot of school, but they could not fit in a lecture on pancreatitis or whatever into the lawyer curriculum, right? That's why we went to vet school. So I think that's it, is do have some patience and and understanding with your clients too. And just even working on that one relationship can help with attitudes outside of that relationship as well. Absolutely.
I feel like the last 2 years, we really, as an industry, we have somehow forgotten to have empathy toward each other, empathy to, especially toward our clients, and we need to somehow get back to that. The cynicism has to stop. The If a client is bringing you their pet, that means they're concerned. So whatever it is you're thinking, just keep it to yourself, and recognize that we're there to help patients.
Yeah. And a lot of it is working with the voice in our own head. Training ourselves, not necessarily just keep it to ourselves, but realize, wow, that was really mean. And
Yeah.
that thought I had. And I think that's human. That's always something that we'll have to work on is we'll have a thought and hopefully we get to the stage where we catch the thought before we say it. And maybe that you start to learn to be your own, trigger catcher where you feel that thought come in and you're like, whoa, maybe I need to sit down and think about, am I a little stressed out? Do I need to go for that run or whatever else is your tool like you described for sure.
Yeah, can you imagine if you were, for whatever reason, bringing your child to a psychoanalyst, and that person started to question every decision you made, and saying things like, "You're creating a sociopath. What are you doing?" How would that feel? So that's it, having some of those conversations in our head can help us reset some of those voices,
Yes.
because
And
none of us are perfect at everything. We're not perfect, period.
right, exactly. We'll never get to perfection, which is fine. It's part of the journey of life is you're constantly growing and learning how to get 1% better every day. So, going back to some of the opportunities for careers within a hospital, I think you have maybe a unique perspective as well as watching some different possibilities of careers within a hospital. So, let's say you have a veterinarian or a veterinary technician who likes medicine, but they're ready to grow. That they want to do something maybe a little bit new and challenging. What have you seen as some possible career pathing within a hospital?
Really depends on where you want to take your career as an employee. I want to keep you within the organization. I want to make sure that we create something that makes sense for you. So I would first ask, what do you want to do? Is it a training role that's of interest? If you're a doctor, and depending on the size of the organization, are you interested in mentorship? Are you interested in a regional role? Are you interested in clinical trials? So what, and I would pose the same question to you. Think about what you want to do and come to the table with some idea of where you would like to go. And let's think of how we can create that. It may
Well,
not be today, but how do we create that plan?
yeah. No, I love people who come with maybe some ideas and even if you don't, that's why you listen to these podcasts or,
Right.
ask around or one great example was she really liked to teach. She worked in a clinic and so she started doing classes for pet owners around exotic animals because she liked exotics and she liked teaching. So she kind of created that opportunity herself. Do you have a good example of someone who is really creative or took charge and starting to make some new opportunities for themselves?
I do. I have one of my doctors who is absolutely amazing, is involved in clinical trials. That's part of her role. And she loves that piece as well. And this is something that was a passion of hers. And so we're making that happen.
Yeah, and actually, when you said that, it surprised me because I don't think of a hospital jumping into clinical trials on your own. Maybe if somebody approached you, but I love that you're taking the initiative to within the hospital to own clinical trials. Good for that doctor
Yeah,
again to I mean, it never hurts to ask, right? And like you said, even if the answer is not necessarily yes, start tomorrow, right? You can start working towards the steps.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. As long as you know where you want to go, it may not be right now or tomorrow, but if we create that foundation, we'll get there.
Yeah. Reflecting back a little bit, what would be your most proud moment in your career?
My most proud moment in my career, I recently had breakfast with one of my old managers from a prior company, and she thanked me for the opportunities I gave her, and said she was in her new role because of the opportunities that we created for her. So I thought that was a great compliment, and she's doing amazing work. She's a great leader. I would say watching people grow is exciting.
Yeah. No, and feeling like you even have a small part in that growth, I know I'm sure is it feels very good.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. And knowing that they're happy, that this is what they want to do, that we're doing everything possible so that they don't leave the industry, that feels good.
Absolutely. Yeah. What are you most looking forward to in the future of this profession?
Looking forward to a time when we're able to help more patients, when we can figure out our staffing situation where we're not diverting cases away. Looking forward to a time when we have shifted the conversation from burnout to resiliency, and or maybe we've done such a good job that we don't have to talk about it anymore. I don't think we're not, nowhere near that. And being able to help more pets. I know the way mine make me feel. And I've got a 14-year-old cardiac chihuahua and a cat that's almost 20. And they're absolutely special. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a time when we can do a better job for our employees, for our patients, and when we're no longer talking about COVID. Definitely.
That one's getting old too, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, and you make a good point that burnout, I think it's just catching it earlier, finding the signs that maybe we need a change or maybe again need to sit down and have a conversation with ourselves. I think it's the world kind of speaking to us. And so if we, as long as we're catching it early, I think that's the important thing. We're in a stressful career. This is a stressful environment. We're never going to fully say that this is just we walk in and it's rainbows and glitter all the time. That's just not the job we picked. But again, it's that resiliency piece. It's the just catching it early and know the right questions and how to adjust and make sure that we continue to thrive in this career that we've chosen. I think is really
absolutely.
important. So you mentioned this future. What do you think are some of the most important things to do to start working towards that future?
Something that is important to me is being open to feedback, being open to new ideas versus the traditional, hey, we tried that 5 years ago, it didn't work. Being able to try things we've never done before. And maybe we'll get it right. Maybe we won't. But if we don't, that's okay too. We'll try something else. So an attitude of innovation, change and innovation, where it becomes a positive thing versus something negative, the way many of us view change right now as a negative. Yeah, I would say change and innovation is great. It's we work in medicine. Where would we be without change and innovation?
Yes, I
It's
sure do. I'm glad I live in today's world and not
yeah,
10 years ago with medicine. So, absolutely. That's a very good point.
yeah. So now we're willing to accept it when it comes to medicine, but when it comes to the psychological piece of it, we press down and say, and we fight it. And I've never thought of that where one part of our brain will embrace change as a good thing, but the other part, the people part, we most of us tend to fight it, and we're in a field that is constantly changing. And can you imagine if you were practicing medicine 50 years ago, what that would have looked like?
Well, in medicine, especially, is a good example. Technology, too, is how fast it's changing, right? And medicine, too, right along with technology, we are changing at an exponential rate. I'm glad because aren't you glad that we have all these treatment options and things for our own health? So why not embrace that with other areas as well?
Absolutely. We've got CTs, MRIs in our hospitals. We're lucky enough that if you walk through some of our hospitals, the technology we have in our hospitals for pets is better than human hospitals in many developing countries. And that's a separate issue altogether. But think about that and think about the pride that comes with that. Where would we be without change?
Yes. Just the other day, my dad's cat has a diaphragmatic hernia. And so the GP referred him to a surgeon and he texts me, he's like, "Are there different types of surgeons in veterinary medicine?" I'm like, "Yes, there are." And he's a doctor. So he's like, "Oh, okay." So, I mean, he understood it, but he just hadn't had to experience that. But you're right. It's definitely evolving and in many good ways. It's embracing the attitude of innovation is a good thing. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a wonderful thing. That wakes me up and I feel proud to go into work and support our hospitals because that's exciting. That we're doing better for our patients. They're living longer. That's the part that excites me about the job.
Yeah. Well, and not only I think you're right. A lot of us are very science minded. We came in this to help animal health. And so we're excited to have a new diagnostic test or, a fancy new imaging machine. But we forget also the things that really make life worth living are the relationships that we have. And so, being able to adapt to changing ourselves and making sure that we maintain these very valuable relationships, whether it's with clients or again with each other in the hospital. That's ultimately, what I think makes us feel like we can thrive.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All
For the better. Yeah.
right. Well, I'll get off my soapbox and let you go. But any last thing you would like to share with the profession?
I would say to anyone that's out there that may be thinking about a career change or anything like that, I challenge you to have a conversation with others. This is a wonderful industry, huge responsibility. We owe it to one another to have tough conversations with each other, especially if someone is considering leaving the industry altogether. So I would say anyone out there that's thinking about it, talk to someone, reach out, talk about what is going on, because every time we lose another person, that could be another pet that goes without care, and that doesn't feel good. So we've got to do a better job at addressing the needs of one another, making sure that we're keeping each other safe in vet med, and that we're having these conversations, that we're asking, hey, are you okay? Tell me what's going on. We can all do a much better job at that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for your perspective. This has been a really interesting conversation. So I'm glad I got to have you on today. I always like to wrap up with a final four questions. So the first question is, what is something on your bucket list?
Good question. Something on my bucket list that I don't like skydiving. I'm afraid of heights, so forget that.
I'm with
Uh,
you. I don't want to do that either.
well, I'll tell you this. In my mind, I've got this glamorous idea that I can finish our lower level myself. So that's on my bucket list. I've watched plenty of HGTV, and it doesn't look very difficult. So I don't know if I can do it, but that's on my bucket list.
No, it's good. It always gives you a project to work on too. So instead of running, you can go work on downstairs. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
That's a winter project. That's how I'm going to look at it. Yeah.
There you go. We're almost there.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. The second question is, what is a simple moment of joy for you?
Coming home. Yeah.
That is a good one. You always want home to be a place that you're excited to come back to.
Yeah.
Very good.
Coming home, feeling safe. Spouse is home. Pets are home. Yeah. That feels good.
Oh, that's a good one. All right. If you could create one law that everyone had to follow, what would your law be?
Hmm. That is a really tough one.
Yeah, it is.
I would probably say universal health care.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
For pets and people,
For
both.
pets and
I
people. Yeah.
like that one. All right. And finally, what is something you are most grateful for?
Grateful for friends, family today, for being here. Yeah. And everything that I have in life.
We forget to stop and think about how lucky we are. And I'm sure your parents probably tell you how lucky you are being able to see lots of different perspectives from their eyes.
I'm very lucky in general, and they're no longer alive, but they did a great job with raising their kids and every sacrifice they made. So I'm very lucky.
This has been the Vet Life Reimagined podcast. Whether you are listening or watching on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please make sure you are subscribed to catch all these amazing people in our profession. Also, send this episode to someone you think who would appreciate it. Have a recommendation for someone who would be a good guest? Please reach out on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. There aren't that many Dr. Sprinkles. Until next time, Vet Lifers.